Pleased to be celebrating the Tea Party with you tonight. Absolutely. I feel like I'm trapped behind the desk because I know this is being videotaped, but you know, the American press is telling us that the Republican Party is in trouble. It's the American press that's telling us that it's the Tea Party, it's the establishment, it's the divide. They're also telling us that it's the Democratic Party that's the party that's united. Well, I've got something I'd like to tell the American press. I'd rather be in a divided party fighting for liberty than a united party fighting for the destruction of America. And they are. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Let me tell you why I'm uniquely qualified to run and why we can beat Mark Warner in November. I'm going to need some of your help as well. And then it's my understanding that after some of my remarks, there's going to be question and answer, and I'm looking forward to it. You know, I graduated from the United States Air Force Academy. I'm a decorated combat pilot. Went straight to pilot training where I graduated near the top of my class. And from there, before I knew it, I was in Desert Storm and Desert Shield flying over the battlefields of Iraq and Kuwait. I saw all the burning oil wells out there. You know, I flew the big KC-135, the big 4-engine aerial refueler. You know, that's the one that lowers the boom. And you know, you may have seen pictures about that, and the other plane comes up. There for a while, my professional job was to pass gas for a living. You know, I say that, I know it's kind of funny, but I try to break the ice a little bit because flying over the battlefields of Iraq and Kuwait, you know, I didn't do that for the thrill of flying. I did that because I had a job to do. I had a duty. And that duty called me at one point to sit in the cockpit of a KC-135, and now it calls me to sit in the United States Senate. Because like many of you, Ed up here and others, I raise my right hand and I promise to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's right. And that Constitution needs more defenders now than at any time in my life.
Right. You got it.
And I flew all over the world. And my last assignment, I was in the presidential wing at Andrews Air Force Base. I was flying congressional and VIP support there. And that was during the Clinton era. And of course, that's ERROR, the Clinton era. And you know, 5 years before that, when I got out at the 9-year mark, my wife was pregnant with our second child. And during that pregnancy, she was developing some pain in her left pelvis, and the doctors said, I have some grave news I need to tell you. It's bone cancer, and you have to terminate the pregnancy. And you know, it's one thing when you're something in theory.
That's right.
It's another thing when it lands on your lap. So my wife and I chose life because that's what we believe in. And I'm pleased to tell you that 21 years later, our son is a medic and he rides the ambulance. Yeah, amen. And he rides the ambulance and he volunteers up in Northern Virginia where we live, and he brings life to an accident scene. You see the circle? And if it's all right with you all, I'd like to introduce you to him. His name is Jake, and he's standing right over here. And I'm pleased to tell you that on January 14th of this year, my wife and I celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. And you know, she's unable to have more children naturally. So we became foster parents, right? When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And so we heard the call, we answered it. You know, every now and again you hear that, become a foster parent, come down, take these classes, and we did. And in 1997 we became licensed, and we took in our first foster child. And we only really took in those that needed a clean diaper and a full stomach. Because when you're helping a baby that needs a clean diaper and a full stomach, who are you really helping? You're helping mom. You're helping mom get her act together. You're helping mom get clean. Maybe you're helping mom and dad work to get back together, or mom to get a skill set. So what's this war on women that they're going to throw at us? But we'll talk about that later if you've got questions. So over the next 16 years, Robin and I would foster 46 children. And we adopted 4 of them. Sure. And because of that, I was appointed by the governor here to be on a domestic violence task force to help women that are in a distressful environment. I also have been helping out with other boards and other commissions. And because of Jake's volunteer work up at the volunteer station as a medic, because of our work as foster parents, and my work in the Domestic Violence Task Force, last year, our family was awarded the 2013 Outstanding Volunteer Family of the Year Award for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Here, here. And since that time, I have a master's degree in finance. I'm a certified financial planner, and I own a financial planning practice. And I have that up in Burke. And not only do I know what a balance sheet is, I know how to balance a balance sheet. Unlike Mark Warner, who doesn't seem to know how to do that. He professes to be some businessman, something smart, something special. But he's the one you heard earlier. He cast the 60th deciding vote that gave us the obscure Obamacare that's intruding into every part of our lives. And you know what? He looked right at the camera and he promised us that he would not vote for a health care bill that took away our choice of a doctor. He promised us he would not vote for a health care bill that took away our plan. Well, through the power of technology, my wife was able to download that video, and we put it on the thumb drive just in case he pulls it. And I now have that thumb drive in a nondescript location in an underground bunker ready to use against him because he lied to us, and he's a tremendous disappointment. And you know, he's the silent senator. He has nothing to say about the issues. He's got nothing to say about what's going on internationally. He's got nothing to say about the IRS. He's got nothing to say about the NSA scandal, the spying. He has something to say about Justin Bieber. That's weird. But you know what? I have something to say to Mark Warner. Mr. Warner, you have the right to remain silent. But you do not have the right to be our United States Senator. And to paraphrase another, if you want to keep your senator, you can keep him. But if you want to get rid of your senator, you can get rid of him, and I want to get rid of him and Harry Reid. And you know, Mark Warner is Harry Reid without the personality. That's right. Isn't that funny? But it's almost funny because it's true, and it's a shame, and it's a disappointment. And you know, there's something that's going on, and it's going on here on June 7th. And on June 7th, those that are going to Roanoke to cast a ballot, you have an important decision to make. You have the ability to change the course of Virginia. So this is where I need some help. I need you to answer yes, amen, absolutely, whatever comes to you if you agree with this question. If we make Mark Warner run on Mark Warner's record, we win.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you guys weren't very loud on that, so the room full. We win, right? Absolutely. If Mark Warner runs on a distraction or something other than his record, who wins then? He does. All right, so here's something I need your help. I've got a chalkboard up here. I'm not going to write anything on it, but let's do a little exercise together. If I split this straight up and down the middle, and on the right-hand side, you all help me out here. What would the characteristics you would want to put on that chalkboard of the next United States Senator that is representing you here in Virginia? What are some of the characteristics you'd want to put up there?
A true Virginian.
Okay, a Virginian. What else?
Honesty.
Okay, integrity. An American. Somebody who has guts. Somebody who's fiscally responsible.
Pro-life.
Okay. Somebody who's pro-life. Somebody who's a businessman. How about a veteran?
Sure.
Somebody who's a veteran.
Pro-Second Amendment.
Pro-Second Amendment. How about somebody who has the ability to read a balance sheet, maybe has an undergraduate degree in finance? How about a master's degree in finance? Okay. We put that there. Somebody who believes in the Constitution. You know, speaking of that, this is a very big concern of mine, is the fact that we're not following a Constitution. We don't need a new Constitution. We need a new Congress. You know, I'm very concerned that if the First Amendment, particularly the religious freedom, went up for a vote in the current Congress we have today, I'm not so sure it would pass. I'm very concerned about the Second Amendment. I think the Second Amendment would pass the House, but I don't think it would pass the Senate. This is very concerning to me. Now, on the left-hand side, let's put the characteristics and the flaws, perhaps, of why we can beat Mark Warner. What are some of the things that we could beat Mark Warner with?
Obamacare.
Obamacare. We'll put it on the first, we'll star it, we'll asterisk it.
A non-Virginian.
A non-Virginian.
No guts.
Okay, he's got no guts because he votes 97% with Obama.
Yep.
You know, it's funny, there's a recent statistic that came out. He's only voted 55% of the time in the last 5.5 years. But the time he's voted 97% of the time with Obama.
You gonna give half his $175,000
Yeah,
payback?
he should. How about somebody who wants Common Core? Somebody who's a believer in crony capitalism. Okay, this is the things that he brings to somebody who's voted for higher taxes. So here's what I need you to do. Run through this with me real quickly, and then I'm going to develop this, and then we'll finish. If I have a speeding ticket, and I'm 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, and Mark Warner has a speeding ticket, and he's 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, can I then go after him for being a speeder? No. Even though he's 5 miles an hour more faster than I am? Is that proper English there? More faster? I can't go after him. If I have a speeding ticket, I cannot go after him for speeding. So here's what we have to look at. The person we're going to nominate on June 7th has to be able to fight Mark Warner on Obamacare.
Yep.
Well, one of the candidates, unfortunately, in his book, wrote on page 245, and I'm going to paraphrase the following, but I'm pretty close to it. He wrote in his book that a better way of solving health care is to mandate that all emancipated adults, that's his word, not mine, all emancipated adults capable have to purchase health insurance. And then the very next sentence it says, and he advocates using the tax code as the enforcing arm.
Yep.
Now, this was written in 2005, published in 2006, before Obama became president. And this other person that I'm talking about also was a senior advisor to Mitt Romney.
Yep.
And Romney Care. So if we want to fight Mark Warner on Obamacare, we have to nominate somebody who doesn't take that off the table.
That's right.
Do you see? Because the speeding ticket, you see that?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, the other guy takes it off the table. Look at GillespieCare.com. The other side's already raising money on him. Now we take a look at crony capitalism. You know, in 2001, the other guy lobbied for a company called Enron.
Yep.
And when you lobby for a company called Enron that's going down, he lobbied for a $500 million plus tax break. That's what he lobbied for, and he was paid for it. And we all know that the following year, in 2002, Enron went bankrupt. 20,000 people lost their job. And if they all had a spouse, 20,000 spouses. If they had 3 kids, 60,000 kids. And Ed Gillespie got paid $700,000.
Yep.
Can you see the commercials already?
Oh, yeah.
So the commercial, I think, is going to look something like this. Very nice house in a nice neighborhood. The grass is overgrown. Maybe there's a broken window. The house is boarded up. Then the next house, it's boarded up. Somebody's going down this road. They see a tricycle. The tricycle's tipped over. The wheel is spinning very slowly. And some man comes on and he says, I lost my job. and my wife was on chemo and she died. Do you think that the Democrats would do that? They've already done it.
That's right.
They've already done it. So they'll do it again. And then the person's going to look at the camera and say, Ed, can I just borrow $50,000 to get my life back? And the narrator's going to come on and say, the Republicans just don't get it. And there's going to be over and over and over and over and over and over. And this is what we're going to get. So if we're going to fight Mark Warner, we need to make sure we've got somebody on the right-hand side that doesn't take the left-hand side off the table. And just for you all, I know you guys get into inside baseball sometimes when it comes to politics and such. You all know that Mark Warner voted for the nuclear option in the Senate.
Yep.
Right? If you don't remember that, I see a lot of people shaking their heads. If you don't remember that, that was that provision, been there for years, 100 plus years, where you have to have 60 votes of the senators to then close the discussion point. They call that cloture. And then at that point, then they have a 50+1 vote. Well, they changed the rule. It's called the nuclear option in the Senate. Well, if you want to fight Mark Warner on the nuclear option in the Senate, don't nominate the other guy because he advocated for the nuclear option in the Senate.
That's right.
Under President Bush.
That's right.
We take it off the table. So here's something I want you to think about on the right-hand side. One of the areas we did not talk about is somebody who's a fundraiser. I'm not a fundraiser, so I appreciate very much that Teresa gave you all cards to help me become a fundraiser. You know, I read a lot of books about leadership, how to fly airplanes. I've actually written 2 books on finances to help women out. I wrote it for my mom, and to help those that are cancer survivors, I wrote that for my wife. I've read many books about how to do certain things on character, on integrity, on how to win a battle. And none of those books had a chapter on how to fundraise. So last year at the convention, how many of y'all went to the convention last year? I'm just curious. Oh, good. So quite a bit of y'all went. Guess who I sat next to at the convention last year? Ed Gillespie. Okay, I sat next to Ed, and sitting next to Ed was his wife, Kathy. And it was a 12-hour ordeal. So, we got up and went to the bathroom, and then he moved and I moved. But I actually started talking to him about this Senate race. And I said to him, Ed, I'd like to just maybe bounce ideas off of you and things along these lines. He gave me his personal cell phone number, which I have still today. And along the way, I would ask him, I would call him, he would call me back. And at one point I said, Ed, you bring a skill to the table, and it's raising money. Will you be my campaign finance chairman? I asked him that. Hey, why not? Because I recognize the skill he brings to the table. You can't have a mismatch on skill sets. If we do, we're going to lose this race. Yeah. Now, at the advance, which was the first week in December, there was a big rumor about him possibly coming into the race, and I was pleased that he joined the race. I actually started running in July, and I was pleased he joined the race, but I said to him at that meeting, Ed, if you decide not to get in, will you become my campaign finance chairman? So I've asked him twice, and he never gave me the answer. He never answered me, but he gave me the answer when he actually came in and he ran. So why do I bring that to the table? Because we probably need to have somebody who can raise money. But you know what? 9 out of 10 ain't bad, huh? It's not bad. But here's a thought to think about. It will be very easy for us to want to vote for somebody who's got money. It'll be very easy for us to want to vote for a fundraiser. But if we vote for money over principle,
right,
in a short amount of time, we're going to have neither money nor principle. Now, everything I've just shared with you, I need to let you know this. I personally told Mr. Gillespie on one of our private phone calls, I said, Mr. Gillespie, you can't win because you take too many things off the table that Mark Warner brings to the table. I personally told that to him. So I'm not telling you all anything that I haven't personally told him. Now, let me just quickly walk through 3 areas that we're working on in the campaign, because I need to tell you something, we're doing really well. Across the state, people are hearing the message. They're recognizing that we have to fight Mark Warner, and we have to hold Mark Warner to Mark Warner's record in order for us to win. So we're coming hard on the liberty issues. People are saying to me, well, Shak, how are you going to be able to grab independents? How are you going to be able to grab, Democrats? How are you going to win in the general? And the answer is, all of us want to have religious freedom. All of us do. And thank goodness for Hobby Lobby and the Little Sisters of the Poor. Yeah. Thank God for the Little Sisters of the Poor. And I mean that. Thank God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. Because that is the very fabric of our nation. And the Second Amendment, I'm very concerned about the chip-away effect of the Second Amendment. And it's the Second Amendment that protects all of the others.
Amen.
And that's why I'm packing. I was a little nervous because last time I spoke with the Tea Party, it was up in, we were out on the campus, and I didn't really, but now we're not, as far as I know, we're not on the campus, so we're allowed to pack. I'm concerned about the Fourth Amendment. This is one that will cross over to the youth, and it'll cross over to the young voters, because that's the one about our personal liberty. Yeah. There was a very disturbing Supreme Court decision that came down about a month and a half ago, and it had to do directly with the Fourth Amendment and our liberty rights. The Fifth Amendment, our property rights, what's going on with the Bonita bill, which passed, which I think is excellent. I mean, think about this. If you milk a cow on your property in Virginia and you sell that milk in Virginia and it's consumed in Virginia, where in the world does the federal government have any jurisdiction in that at all? They don't have any jurisdiction. If you manufacture a firearm in Virginia and you sell it to a Virginian, where in the world does the federal government have any jurisdiction in that transaction? Nowhere. So I'm very concerned about the 10th Amendment as well. And for all of y'all that remember, the 10th Amendment says that whatever's not in Article 1, Section 8, that are the enumerated powers that we learned in school. I mean, after all, there's no youth in this class, or no youth in this meeting. We learned it. I'm afraid they're not learning it. But it says that if it's not in Article 1, Section 8, it rests with the people or the states. And then, you bet it is. So we're bringing liberty, and we're going to talk about it, and it's going to cross over to the independents, and it's going to cross over to those that are on the Democratic side, like the Reagan Democrats, particularly because of the intrusion of the federal government. Right. And the absolute intrusion of Obamacare and what's going on with the Affordable or the Unaffordable Care Act. I mean, it's terrible. If you've got 29 employees, or 29 hours, you're not going to 30 because they count you differently. If you've got 49 employees, you're not going to 50 because they count you differently. How about instead of putting a big boot on the economy, here's an idea for you on the city council level. Instead of putting a big boot on the economy, why don't we incentivize those that will earn money? So I'll throw out an idea. I don't know how it's going to work. We haven't scored it yet, but at least we need to start thinking about ideas. How about if you earn $250,000 or more? Now that's a big number, but that's the White House occupant's number. I really don't like to say his name if I don't have to. But if you have $250,000 of earned income or more, how about this? You keep it all. Every penny. So from 0 to 250, it's taxed normally. It's taxed as the tax code is today, which I, by the way, would rather scrap in favor of the fair tax. Yeah. Okay. We'd have to repeal the 16th Amendment. I'm cool on that. While we're repealing amendments, let's also repeal the 17th Amendment. All right, so from 0 to $250,000, you have regularly taxed. No new tax, but it's just a regular tax. How about for over $250,000? You keep it all. I talked to a business group, and I shared that idea with them. And somebody raised their hand and said, wait a minute, Shak, I got 2 auto bodies. I always forget that. 2 auto body shops. And he says to me, if I open a third, I'll beat 250. So you mean I get to keep everything above that? Now, why would this make sense? It incentivizes the entrepreneur to make more money, which means he has to hire a master mechanic and he also has to hire an entry level. How in the world does that not make sense? Yep. And it does. So we're looking at that intently, and we're going to score it to see if it makes sense with our cash flow that we do need. But these are ideas we need to be bringing to the table, and I'm pleased to be bringing it. The second thing we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about it hard, is veterans and veterans issues and the military issues. What's going on right now with our military and the destructive nature of this current administration is intentional, it's diabolic, and it's threatening our national security.
That's right.
If you disrupt the end of a career, whether that end occurred after 20 years or 20 plus years, and it's a retirement, or whether it ended because of a disability, if you disrupt the end, who's going to volunteer to come in the beginning? Nobody.
That's right.
And we have a stated objective from the President of the United States to go to pre-World War II levels. Now, folks, let's translate that real quickly. That means that he wants to take us to 4th or 5th place in the world strength. We were not a superpower before World War II. So he wants to pull us back to that level, and Mark Warner is silent on this.
Yep.
You know, there is one thing I'm not going to be silent about, and that's Benghazi.
Here, here.
I mean, Benghazi is an American travesty because we did nothing there. And the president had authority, he had assets, and he had the ability to do something. We may or may not have been able to save Ambassador Stevens, but we should have been able to send a very strong message to the region because that's what they understand. And if we had taken care of Benghazi, there would be no Syria and there would be no Ukraine. But because we've totally advocated our foreign policy, which is, by the way, a jurisdiction of the federal government, but because we've totally advocated that, we now have it and we have to deal with it. And it puts us in a very, very bad position. Yes. So we're going to talk about veterans and veterans affairs, and we're going to tell the people of Virginia that Mark Warner voted for this. He absolutely cast ballots that would take away the rights of our veterans, and particularly our disabled, which is not good. The third thing we're going to talk about energy and energy independence. And here's why. Because it is self-evident that our Creator gave us a land full of energy. That's right. Yes. And if Virginia, as a sovereign commonwealth, wants to take coal out of Southwest Virginia and burn it, then they have every right to do that under the 10th Amendment. Now that's up to and including 20 miles off the coast if your state has a coast. But if Colorado wants to do it, if Louisiana wants to go after the Haynes Shell and start doing the fracking and bringing that in, if they want to move the pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline through, they have every right to do that. The federal government has zero jurisdiction in our energy policy. And we need to start pushing back on that. So the states have it. The states have this right. I get it. I recognize it, and I'm bringing that with me to the federal government. So I want to leave you there with some ideas that we're doing positively. Some of the strong reasons why we need to cast a ballot in Roanoke, because we'd much rather have the person on the right than the person on the left. And I thank you very much for being here. I thank you for what you're doing for the Tea Party. I am taxed enough already myself. I want constitutional limited government. I want free markets. And I'm so glad you're here. Thank you all very much for having me. So I'll be more than happy to take a question. I saw a hand, and then Mr. Chairman, whenever you want me off, just politely come over here and grab me with a hook. But yes, sir, with a hat. You bet.
How about the trial of Bob McDonald?
Yeah. What, for those of you in the back that didn't hear him, he said, you know, Shak, you're a very attractive candidate. You're a nice young man. And that's what I thought I heard. Oh, maybe not. You said, how about the trial of Bob McDonald? Can you just elaborate briefly? I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, the news media is going to be harping on how Gillespie
Okay.
It's gonna be just as though Gillespie's on trial right there beside
Yeah.
McDonald.
You know, the very first commercial, this is my opinion, I don't know, I have no inside track, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what Mark Warner's going to do. Remember, Mark Warner doesn't run on his record. Okay? He does not want to run on his record. The very first commercial, in my opinion, that he'll put out is Bob McDonald, 14 indictments. Ed Gillespie, Bob McDonald's campaign chairman. The Republicans just don't get it, do they? And we're going to see that commercial in June, and we're going to see it over and over and over and over. $250 million, ladies and gentlemen. And why are they going to do that first? Because Bob McDonald goes to trial in July. And they're going to have all of the media when they link them together. Yeah. So I not only that, but you're going to hear Mitt Romney in this race. You're going to hear Karl Rove in this race. You're going to hear about the TARP, and you're going to hear about the bailouts in this race. You're going to hear President Bush in this race. And you know what's going to happen when we're hearing all of this? We're not going to be hearing about Mark Warner.
That's right.
And we're going to lose. Okay? You guys are killing me. Oh, okay, good. Yes, sir.
This isn't so much of a question, but it kind of is. Was one of the pre-filed delegates from Campbell County that was slated at the last meeting. Anybody else in here that pre-filed for Campbell County? Okay, it's not over, folks. It's on appeal. Okay, I need your signature tonight. Okay, it's not over. It's very likely we may win on appeal. Okay, so this is for also the 5th District and the State Central Committee petitions. Okay?
Excellent.
And this is for you, Mr.
No, thank you very much. You know, it's interesting because everybody's going around and you're hearing this from the other guy who's running as well, and they're saying how we need to be inclusive. We need to open our tent up. We need to bring more people in. You know what? I'm not so sure I agree with that. How about we do this? How about we follow the Republican Party creed of Virginia, and then they'll come into our tent. Okay? How about we do that first? Why don't we follow the fact that we need to be fiscally responsible, that we believe that everybody has an equal opportunity, that we believe that we should have constitutional limited government, that we believe in our Creator. I mean, why don't we follow that? And it works. It works every time it's tried.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Since, and I'm new here, I'm starting out now. My question is, they had a Republican meeting next to the Tea Party. They want to be inclusive. Are they backing your candidacy, the Republican Party of Lynchburg?
If we believe what they're telling us, which is the only thing we can and should do, then they're going to back the candidate that comes out victoriously 100%.
The reason I'm asking that is, and I donated to Ken Cuccinelli, and I worked on campaigns before, and the reason he lost is because the Republican Party did not back conservative. It's happened in state election after state election, and I'm telling you that.
There's a lot of moving parts. Whoops.
Then I should get behind the conservative.
I totally agree. A lot of moving parts as to why somebody won and somebody didn't win. I think part of the reason, and I don't want to Monday morning quarterback what happened, but we are learning from it. But part of what we're going to do is go on the offensive. We're not going to sit back and go on the defense and wait for it to come to us. We're going on the offense, and we're pushing. So if you go to shakhill.com, especially for those of you that are going to be delegates coming up here on June 7th. And again, I echo what Teresa told us, and make sure you go. Please, make sure you go. But for those of you that are going to be delegates, go to shakhill.com, scroll down just a little bit on the landing page, and take a look at the video we put together. And the video is entitled, Mark Warner's War on Girls. It's a pretty interesting video. For everybody else that's not going, there's a big red button, and that means you have to donate to the campaign. See, I'm working on number 10 here, so I'm working on that. But seriously, go to that. Because here's what I think is going to happen. When I get the nomination, Mark Warner is not going to be able to run against the fact I'm a decorated combat pilot. 1/6 of the people here in Virginia are veterans. He's not going to be able to run on the fact I'm a small business owner, master's degree in finance. He's not going to run on the fact that I fostered 46 children, we've adopted 4, I'm on a domestic violence task force. He's not going to run on that. He will run on my belief of the Second Amendment, and I've shared that with you. But he's also going to run on the fictitious war on women. We know it's coming. So one of the things I think that might have gone wrong on Mr. Cuccinelli's campaign, and again, I'm not trying to be a Monday morning quarterback, we're just trying to learn so we don't make the same mistakes, is we're going on the offense regarding the war on women. So take a look at that, and I'd be more than happy to tell you a little bit more about it if you want. Otherwise, I'd be more than happy to answer a different question if you'd like that as well. Okay, so we do want to hear about this. We've got 2 videos out, and the first video is a 1 minute and 42 seconds short. And it's a man on the street. It's a female reporter. And she's walking up to people and she's asking 3 questions. And here are the 3 questions. Did you know that Senator Mark Warner is for sex selection abortion? Did you know that?
Yep.
Got it? Yes? No? Not sure? Did not know that? Okay, these are the answers we're getting. Here's the second question. Which sex do you think gets aborted? Females. Girls. And here's the third question, folks. Did you know that Senator Mark Warner wants your taxpayer dollars to pay for it? And we're going to hit him. This is a 90% winner for us. 90% winner. Because my position on all of this, well, you know my position on life. Okay, you got it, loud and clearly. Nobody could have missed that. But my position right now is this. We cannot pass a law to change that. It comes from the Supreme Court. So we have to be careful of who we put in the advise and consent role. Okay? But my position is shouldn't we at least have safety standards at the women's clinic?
Yes.
Shouldn't they at least be at the level of a veterinarian office? Mark Warner doesn't even want that.
That's right.
So the first video is entitled Mark Warner's War on Girls. And when you go through the press release that we put out, I'm quoted in there. You know, it's my video, so I'm quoted in there. And I put in there, Mark Warner has a war on girls, and it's killing them.
Yep. Good.
The second video that's already up there is called Mark Warner's War on the Poor and on Women. And it is it's 2 couples sitting around the table, and they're talking to each other. I've given you a little bit of the dialogue, but they're talking to each other, and they say something along the lines of this. Hey, did you know that Mark Warner's not for safety standards at the women's clinics? Really? They have to have safety standards at the veterinarian office? You mean that Mark Warner wants to have more protection for my dog than he wants for my daughter? Hey, did you know that tattoo parlors are inspected more often than women's clinics are inspected? You know, Mark Warner is going to never be seen in any facility like this. Him and his friends can go to the best facilities. Well, I'm not comfortable with that. Why is it that he's relegating these conditions to the poor and those that can't afford the best? And you know, he doesn't even want the doctor to be certified for procedures just in case something goes wrong at the during the procedure. That doctor has to call 911 if something goes wrong. So why is it that Mark Warner is relegating everybody else to these unsanitary conditions? It sounds like to me he's got a war on the poor and on women.
That's right.
And my name is Shak Hill, and I approve this message. And we're hitting him. Now the third video that's in production, the third video is, it's not going to have any actors or actresses. It's going to be all animated, but it's going to be the fly-in that says, from the day Mark Warner cast the 60th vote that gave us Obamacare, and then there'll be some picture of him doing something. From that day forward, in Virginia, 50,000 women, now don't hold me to 50,000, don't hold me to that number. We're researching the number. We're trying to come up with an accurate number. But let's say it's 50,000. 50,000 women no longer have access to contraception or to women's clinics because of Mark Warner passing Obamacare. He can't even get that right. And we're going to hit him on it. And here's our theory in the campaign. Our theory is this. If we take the fictitious war on women off the table, then we get to talk to him about Obamacare. We get to talk to him about the TARP, and we get to talk to him about cap and trade. And speaking of that, I think we should cap and trade him. Then we get to talk to him about why he's raising he's voted for $1 trillion worth of tax increases. If we nominate the other guy who supported the unconstitutional tax here in Virginia, we take that right off the table. Because everybody seems to be getting this. This is good. So I appreciate that. Yes, sir, you had a question in the back.
Well, actually, it's a statement I told Travis a few days ago, and I wish I could put billboards all over the state that said, government says we can't feed the animals because the animals become so dependent on you feeding them they can't fend for themselves. But the government turns around and feeds the people, so the people become so dependent on the government they can't fend for themselves.
Have you seen that picture of the bear sitting in the sitting on the picnic table? It's beautiful. Don't feed the bears.
That's right.
But speaking of billboards, do you know the Democrats already have billboards in Richmond that are going up? And it says enroned.com.
Yep.
They're already up.
Yep.
And it's funny because when you talk about raising money, and people have come to me and said, Shak, we really need to have resources. This is not a message. This year is not a year of resources. It's a year of message.
That's right.
Message over money is going to win this year. Because if it's only about money, both of us may as well pack up and go home because Warner's got $250 million.
That's right.
This is a year of message over money. And our message is right. Our message about liberty, about veterans, about energy independence, which I think, by the way, is a national security concern. Our message about the NSA snooping, it's all right. If we're talking about money over message, we've got it flipped and we've got it wrong. And to that point, and then I'll get to your question, sir, but to that point, just for anybody who's in the room that's concerned about us being able to raise money, we already have commitments. Oh, well, when are you going to post the video? Is it going up soon?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this weekend.
All right, well, if it's going out this weekend, I'll let you guys in on something that just happened this morning. Has anybody ever heard of the National Association of Gun Rights, NAGR? We just got their national endorsement, came in today. So you guys now have some inside baseball on that. We already have Gun Owners of America, but NAGR just came in this morning. We're going to get Combat Veterans of America, we hope. We've already gotten the National Defense PAC has already endorsed us. So at the convention, we've been told by a myriad of groups that, Shak, get to the convention and win, and we're on board.
Yep.
And I've already talked to, and I don't want to misconstrue, not all these groups have said this, but I just want to share with you groups that we're talking to. We're talking to Heritage Action, we're talking to the Club for Growth, we're talking to the Tea Party Express, we're talking to, see, I'm already missing so many that we were talking to. We're talking to Sarah Palin and the Sarah PAC. We're talking to, I've already met with Ted Cruz. In fact, 2 weeks ago, was it, Travis?
Yes.
2 weeks ago, he was here speaking at Liberty University, and he and I had some one-on-one time. We talked about the race and what's going on. We've already talked to Rand Paul up in his office. And by the way, keep your fingers crossed, we're trying to get Dr. Ron Paul's endorsement. I can't say it's looking good, but it's in the works. It's going through. So we were talking to these guys. And the money's coming because we have the message and we've got the background. You see the other guy, Ben Carson, we're talking to his group as well, but for different reasons. He doesn't like to go into endorsing. He's endorsed one person in a congressional race, but he hasn't endorsed anybody else. But the money's going to come because we have the right message. And one of the nice things that Mike Lee's office, Mike Lee of Utah's office, he's working on the ability to nationalize the Senate race. So, for lack of a better term, let's call it the conservative coalition or something along these lines. So, people have asked me, well, Shak, if you're elected in Virginia, you're a freshman senator, you got excellent ideas, believe in the Constitution, believe in our inalienable rights, but what is one freshman senator going to do? And Mike Lee gets that. So what he's doing already is he's taking a look at this race, he's taking a look at Matt Bevins over in Kentucky. Wouldn't that be a nice upset? He's looking at Ben Sass in Nebraska, he's looking at right here in North Carolina, what Greg Brennan is doing. He's looking at Rob Maness that's going on in Louisiana. I mean, so we're looking at all of these. So if we nationalize this race and say, hey, wait a minute, instead of 1 from Virginia, why don't we have 8 or 9? This is going to be a very good thing because we'll be able to fight Warner on the left-hand side of the board. This is going to be awesome. I'm very excited about that. Yes, sir.
I think everything you're saying is absolutely phenomenal. But there's,
And I believe it.
yeah, you're right, I can tell. But there's an issue that it may be a little under the radar right now, but at any point between now and November, it could jump right into the headlines, and I'd like to know what your thoughts are. And that is is Iran's effort to develop nuclear weapons.
Oh, yes.
For those of you that didn't hear him in the back, he said, Shak, you're very phenomenal. And I thought I heard that word. But what's your position? You're asking me, what's my position on Iran and Iran's attempt to get nuclear weapons? You know, it's interesting because I believe that we all have inalienable rights. I believe our inalienable rights come from our Creator, and we're all made in the image and likeness of our Creator. Whether you're made in Israel, whether you're born in Israel or born in Iran, for that matter. But when you have somebody that insists that when they have the capability of destroying another person, that they're going to do that, then we have to prevent the original capability of occurring. Now, under one caveat, you know, in Article 1, Section 8, it says, Congress has the right to declare war. I do not want to put any soldier at any time, under any circumstance except one, under any circumstance in harm's way unless the Congress of the United States declares war. Okay? The last time we declared war was in World War II. We haven't declared war since. This is a major problem because it's outside the jurisdiction of the federal government. What is the one exception? A Benghazi. A Benghazi is an exception. The president needs to get information, he needs to make a decision, he needs to act unilaterally. That's his ability, and he can do that. And he should do it, and he should do it with the full force and might of the federal government and the military after World War II levels, not pre-World War II levels. And he has that right to do that. But then he has to come to Congress and he has to seek a declaration of war. Okay? That's my litmus test. But the answer to your question is, who in their right mind would stand idly by and allow somebody who's a self-professed, help me with the word, terrorist, self-professed terrorist, that's a good word, self-professed terrorist who tells us that when they have the capability, they're going to do this. We cannot allow for that to stand. Okay. Yes, sir.
Listening to you talk tonight, one thing's come clear that to me rings true about your personality, and that's you're a firm believer that you lead from the front, not from behind.
Amen.
And when you're talking about Warner and the 60th vote, it sounds an awful lot like the rear.
Thank you very much. Now, if we're not, if we're not leading from the front, newsflash, we're not leading. So a couple other ideas as you formulate your questions, and I really respect your time and I appreciate you letting me develop everything. But here's a couple ideas that we're definitely going to bring forward to the United States Senate. How about this for an idea? Every law that's passed is equally binding on the United States Senate, the United States Congress, and the executive branch. You know? I mean, I just don't understand how it doesn't work that way, because it absolutely should. Another idea that I want to have, as best as we can, and we should be able to do this, is separate all of the bills. Separate them. So if we're going to have a transportation bill, which, by the way, you could argue that the federal government has jurisdiction in that part of the transportation that links the two states, but they don't have jurisdiction inside of the states. But you could argue that, and I think you'd be right under the Commerce Clause. But if you're going to have a transportation bill, don't attach firefly study groups to figure out why some of them blink and why some of them don't blink. I mean, don't put these other attachments in these. The other is pull back the authority from the secretaries and put it back into the Congress. Because Article 1, Section 1 says all legislative power rests in a Congress. And then it says Section 2. Like there's no ambiguity there. So when Obamacare says, and we leave it to the discretion of the secretary to do this, the Congress has just advocated their responsibility under the Constitution. And you know what, Mr. Warner? If you want to advocate your responsibility, resign, and resign immediately.
That's right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Under the keep it simple, stupid theory, why can't we have a one-page bill instead of thousands of pages that nobody can read?
Well, that's part of why I want to separate it.
Bill.
Yeah, one-page bill, two-page bill, sure. I mean,
But you have to read it before you vote on it.
Well, here's the thing that's interesting. The Congress is trying to hide so many things inside of these magnanimous bills. 2,700 pages is how large Obamacare was. It is obnoxious that there's a bill that's large. First of all, the question I have is this: where does it say in the Constitution that the federal government has the right to be involved in medicine and healthcare delivery? Nowhere. It doesn't say it anywhere. So we need to have bills that solve problems. I get that. But we have to look at the jurisdiction first. For example, I'll tell you real quickly. If we want to decide what color to change this wall, let's say that we want to decide that, I don't like this gray-blue. I want to make it more mauve or beige. And we could sit down, we could get a group together, and we could hash it out, we could figure out and come up with a compromise and decide a color. But here's the first question that I'm going to ask in the United States Senate. Do we have the authority to paint the wall? Because if we don't have the authority to paint the wall, there's no compromise. There's nothing that's available in the equation. There are things that the federal government has no jurisdiction over. For example, do you guys have Pelosi bulbs in here? I mean, where in the world does the federal government get that jurisdiction? So 1 or 2 page bills, and by the way, when we do that and we pull back the intrusiveness of the federal government, our inalienable rights will expand. The entrepreneur development will just go beyond belief. The ideas in our head and what we're trying to do because we're free will just expand is a word that's just in my head twice. So it'll expand, it'll grow. And because of that, that's why we are this exceptional nation here. It was funny because President Reagan has told us this, that we are the shining city on the hill. And under President Reagan, he said that this is morning in America. Well, under Obama and under Warner, America is in mourning. So here's what I need. I believe that we've got patriots in this room. I believe that you believe in the Constitution. I believe that you're going to raise your right hand and you're going to promise to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. I need you to get together. I need you to start working. I need you to start working on Saturday at the closest level to the people and get the city council elected. I need you to go to Roanoke on June and cast a ballot for Shak Hill. Thank you all very much.